All right, for more on this, we are now being joined by Mark Matthews, who's the Managing Director at Bank Julius Baer and Company and prominent Asian markets expert, joining us live from Singapore. Mark, thank you so much for joining us, making time for World Business Watch. How do you read the market's reaction to the Hindenburg versus SEBI Chief Saga?
From what I can gather, the Indian investors I've spoken with see a lot of smoke and mirrors in this whole story, in the sense that Mrs. Buch and her husband did invest in that offshore fund, but it was almost 10 years ago, and they did so as private investors. And yes, it's true that Mr. Buch is an advisor to Blackstone, but that's not something anybody couldn't have found out or known about before. So we'll see what the Supreme Court has to say, but as a layman, I can't see any evidence to support impropriety in either of those accusations. And when I look at the stock market and its reaction, the story came out on Sunday. Yesterday, the market closed basically flat. It's flat at the open today, quite reminiscent of the last time when Hindenburg Research broke a similar story, January of last year, and the market went down 4% initially. Then it continued to go down about 4% until March. But my recollection of those times was that the market was far more concerned with the Federal Reserve and Reserve Bank of India raising interest rates than it was this particular story. And so I think if there was really some kind of chronic system-wide problem with corruption in India, there's just no way that the Indian stock market could have had the kind of returns which it has had over the last 10 years, 14% per year, over the last 10 years before that, 17% per year. That's simply not possible if there's a tremendous amount of corruption in the system. So I don't see investors shifting their focus away from India's superior macroeconomic backdrop toward much greater scrutiny on this kind of thing.
Mark, if I were to also get a perspective from you from an international standpoint, what impact will the Hindenburg-SEBI Chief Saga have on foreign investors, if you could weigh in on that? So
far, the only big media that I've seen report on this issue is the Financial Times. But I checked, the Wall Street Journal has not reported on this. Neither has the New York Times or the Washington Post. So I think it's reflective of the low interest of foreign investors in Indian markets, which is unfortunate and incorrect. But I think right now they're so happy with the very good returns in the US stock market, and they tend to put all of the emerging markets together in one asset class, which I think is also misguided. So the ones who are looking at it, the foreigners who are invested in India, I think they simply see that politics and business are intertwined in India and around the world. I mean, just look at all the big technology sector donors to both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, but that doesn't dilute the fact that those big technology companies have very good returns. And so their share prices have been good to invest in.
All right, Mark, thank you so much for joining us and sharing all your insights. That was Mark Matthews, Managing Director at Bank Julius Baer and Company and prominent Asian markets expert, joining us from Singapore. Always a pleasure hearing your thoughts on matters.